Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Demystify Selling with Microsoft. And I'm joined by someone I had an opportunity to meet and hear speak back in, I guess it was late last year, early this year at the IAMCP event in Las Colinas. So, got a chance to meet Justin Sheedy. Justin, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, you had a talk in Las Colinas that really got me thinking. More partners need to hear what you have to say, and more partners need to understand the vertical that you work in. So, I'd love it if you could take a few minutes, Justin, and just give us a little background on you and the organization you're part of, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Justin Sheedy, based here in Texas. In my current role with Microsoft, I am the SMB lead for Tech for Social Impact in the United States and LATAM. I have a couple counterparts around the globe, but we are a small but mighty team. Essentially, Tech for Social Impact is the nonprofit vertical team at Microsoft, and we scale through partners to drive consumption of our productivity tools and offerings within the nonprofit sector. We have a handful of small named accounts, just like we do in the enterprise or SMC segments on the corporate side of Microsoft. But the majority of the nonprofits we work with would fall into what our partners know as the SMB category. So we're heavily reliant on our partners to reach the thousands and thousands of eligible nonprofits to take advantage of the offers that Microsoft provides them through grants and discounts on our productivity tools.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you brought up such a good point. Everybody talks about, well, I want to work on the managed accounts. I want to be working on managed accounts. I'm like, well, you could do that, but my experience, and I'd love to hear your take on this, is that it's much more crowded. Like all partners want to be, oh, I want that managed account, but the opportunity in my mind is in the SMB space, that small to medium business, and I'd love to hear your take on that, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm certainly biased as an SMB focused representative, but as I said, the majority of the nonprofits are probably less than 50 employees and fall right into that category of SMB. They don't have a named relationship with Microsoft. They don't have a dedicated representative. And particularly if your company falls into that segment, it can be extremely challenging to buy from Microsoft and or understand all of the complexities of the different Microsoft offerings and the legacy of what they were and what they've moved to from on-prem to the cloud. So you really do need a trusted advisor in this space. And as you said, there's much more opportunity for partners to sort of land and expand in this segment, particularly with nonprofits who are really, struggling or kind of behind the eight ball traditionally in terms of having the latest and greatest technology, but now more than ever are in a position where they need to do more with less. They need to invest in the right tools in order to meet their mission and be as productive as possible with the limited amount of resources they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in the current climate we're in and the changes that have happened around funding, I think that really is, it's truer today than it ever was. I think that they are going to have to find ways, nonprofits are going to have to find ways to do more with less.
Absolutely. And when you look at the big bets from a Microsoft perspective, they're really the top challenges facing nonprofits. It's security. Nonprofits and non-government organizations are more vulnerable than ever. They're actually in the top 5 in terms of targeted entities. AI and productivity, employee burnout, and really having a staff that is spread way too thin and doing too many jobs is a challenge that I see across the nonprofits that our partners work with. So when it comes to kind of the big bets around AI, productivity, security that Microsoft is making, they fall right into the needs and challenges that nonprofits face.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And so I'd love to switch gears on you a little bit then and maybe talk about something that I think you were alluding to just a moment ago is that the challenges these nonprofits face in terms of, say, working with Microsoft. And what do you see in the best partners out there, those partners that really succeed in that SMB space? What are some of the attributes they bring to the table that you think would be key for partners to hear?
I think having that clear focus and defined value proposition, just like it is on the corporate side,
Mhm.
specific to a challenge or an outcome that the nonprofits are facing, calling that out on your website and your materials in terms of one of the verticals that you might want to focus on or the customer case story wins that you have had. Um, understand and define that problem that you're solving for that customer with whichever piece of the Microsoft puzzle you are providing, and really having that readiness and willingness to co-execute with Microsoft towards that end.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think you also touched on the fact that it's no secret. It's not easy to work directly with Microsoft for partner or for customers. And there's a lot of options. And in the non-for-profit space, do you qualify? And then if you do qualify, what licenses make the most sense? I've got frontline workers, and so the complexity seems like almost overwhelming for a customer. And I would, do you see the best partners really helping to clarify those messages for customers?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think making sense of what the offerings are and what an entity is eligible is absolutely step one, and then understanding which piece of that offering the entity needs help with. Right. So whether you're a solutions integrator who has maybe baked a solution into the biz app side, and it's a specific thing that nonprofits can use around grants or around how they do accounting, or maybe it's just the service and care and feeding of the day-to-day applications that that entity is running. So understanding what you do as a partner and how that's specific to the challenges that the vertical is facing is definitely key.
Yeah, I love that. I think, and as you alluded to there, sort of the grants being one of the problems that nonprofits face. But as I'm thinking about it, it's recruiting volunteers, managing volunteers. There's all kinds of components to their business that are unique to a nonprofit, and having that ability to speak the nonprofit language, I would imagine, is a differentiator for you and your team that works with partners, and finding those partners that can speak that language.
100%. Yeah. And making sure that that is communicated from a partner motion with that customer. They don't talk about landing customers. They talk about, maybe getting more donors. They talk
Yeah,
about mission of that entity in terms of what they're set up to be achieving for their community, for their environment, or for whatever their mission might be, and really aligning what you as a partner is doing to service and support that end is definitely very critical. Using the right language, using the right outcomes, and solving for the challenges that they're facing.
yeah, no, I love that. I love that, and you pointed out something there that I think we shouldn't overlook, which is that these nonprofits are very much mission driven, and I think if you show up with that same sort of mindset as a partner, that really goes a long way, in my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, do you find that partners that are mission driven, even if the mission is to solve these big problems for customers or for nonprofits, do you see that being part of the ecosystem of partners that are successful?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think having a person or persons dedicated to the nonprofit motion for your company is absolutely critical, right? So whether that's dedicating an individual seller or an individual project manager or a marketing person to really make sure that whatever message you're using on the corporate side has been sort of refined and adapted to speaking to the nonprofit challenges, and also so that they are understanding and going after the outcomes that those entities might be facing, and that they're empathetic to the fact that they may or may not have the same types of budgets and the same types of cycles for decision making. So really, kind of having that dedicated focus is important, and it
Mhm.
does really help that partner rise to the top in terms of focus from tech for social impact, as well as getting more deeper ingrained with our sellers who are focused on nonprofits, be
Right.
that in the SMC or the named account space as well.
No, I love that. Well, let's flip this script a little bit here, and I'd love to hear from you some of the common mistakes that you see partners make. So, what are some of the things that you'd be like, you might want to think about this differently? I'd love to hear some thoughts around that.
I think probably the biggest one is just the expectation that I'm a partner of Microsoft, and that alone is going to create the demand for my thing, my widget, my service,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. Right? Really, just showing up and expecting Microsoft to hand out some leads without having done the operational legwork to sort of warrant that bidirectional lead flow or that co-sell promised land that most partners are trying to get to. Right? So. And I think just doing that homework to understand what customers have I already worked with that are fall into this vertical, or what entities do I want to work with that are in my city, in my state, in my region. What relationships do I already have within the things that I've solved for my customers that I can then highlight? So just like any other vertical, there's sub verticals within nonprofit, right? So if you've, you know, worked with several church entities, or if you've worked with several nonprofit hospitals, right, try to find where you can replicate the success you've had and really speak to how your solution or offerings can solve for more of those, and help Microsoft make it easy to understand so that we can amplify that, what you're already
Uh,
doing.
I love that. I love that. There's a couple things you said in there that I just want to highlight. One is, not showing up with the expectation of leads like that to me. I mean, I am not sitting in the Microsoft sales seat, but I would just be put off by somebody saying, hey, what do you got for me? That would just be really frustrating. So I think that's a message that partners need to take away. But it's also just thinking about the areas you've worked on, like you talked about those sort of sub niches. And let's pick on rural healthcare for a moment and say, the rural healthcare community, they have a unique set of challenges. Not only are they in the middle of nowhere, they're typically seriously constrained on money. They're seriously constrained on access to resources. And I think if you can show up as a partner with solutions to real problems that these nonprofits are facing, that really goes a long way to separate you out from the pack of 500,000 other Microsoft partners.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in 2024, Microsoft and our competitors were sort of put on the spot by the government to say, hey, what are we doing to service and support this kind of underserved, critical, uh, healthcare components? And so we have offerings to enable, even if they're for-profit rural hospitals that qualify per the federal standard, to achieve that nonprofit discount, right? But it really takes a smart, savvy partner to understand the complexities of the nuances of those offerings, and as you said, show up with the solution for those decision makers at those, in this case, rural hospitals, to really allow them to take full advantage of what Microsoft is providing and implement it to solve for the challenges that they have.
Yeah, I love that. Just, showing up as a partner, understanding how you can help, what programs you can leverage, and bringing that to the market at large. That's such a powerful position to be in as a partner. So great. Well, let me do this. I'd love to hear from you, and this is a little bit of a curveball, but if you get on the phone with a new partner, and this is the first time you've been introduced to this partner or getting introduced to this partner, what are the questions you have for that partner going through the back of your mind? Like, is it, what do you do? How do you do it? I would just love to hear kind of what you're thinking when you're introduced to a new partner.
Yeah, it's always helpful for me to sort of understand, again, because Microsoft's vast amount of partners is so extensive, again, which component are they bringing to the market? Are they, implementing a software solution that's part of a Microsoft thing? Are they servicing and supporting? Are they, migrating to or doing care and feeding after the fact? So kind of understanding, and it may be a faction of all of those, but really understanding where they want to focus
Yeah.
is pretty critical. Understanding which markets they're focused in. Is it a more of a regional nature? Is it, nationwide? Is it international? Where have they had success before? Is this a new market? Is this an established market? What's their maturity level with the Microsoft ecosystem and, co-selling in general, and what's their knowledge around that? Where have they had success with our, SMB corporate customers, with our, unnamed customers in a different vertical? So that sort of helps me then, interpret and then translate what are the like programs that they may have experience with, and then what are the things that we may have that are sort of special or unique to TSI that we can plug them into or take advantage of, that are not necessarily starting from scratch, but building on the knowledge the partner already has.
Awesome. I love that. It's so, that's something I want partners to rewind and listen to is, when you're talking to someone like Justin or one of Justin's peers, is really think about all the things that you, Justin, need to do and to help them be successful, they need to understand how to communicate with you and to really hone in on the value they can bring. So I love that. And along that vein, is it important to you that partners are communicating their opportunities through Partner Center, like to keep you updated on, please, do the referrals up to Microsoft when you're working, especially on these unmanaged accounts? Is
More and more it is, absolutely. And I know that, again, in the stages of co-sell and lead sharing through Partner Center within the enterprise and within the SMC space where there were named accounts, that was much more important. But more and more, we're seeing that kind of trickle down into the SMC space or SMB space as well. And a lot of what we call the highest propensity to buy in that unmanaged segment is called the top unmanaged customers, or TUM, right? So that's yet another Microsoft
Yeah,
acronym
I gotta love that
to
acronym.
familiarize themselves with. But I think if that motion is already there, then absolutely be sharing those things, because again, it's one more way for you to show up, for you to differentiate yourself, and for you to show the value and the knowledge of the customers in the market that you're going after and bringing those back to Microsoft. So yes, that's definitely key and something that partners should do and continue to do. Another thing, building on your last question, is a key question for partners to ask of the Microsoft folks that they're interacting with is understanding how that individual or that team is measured and metric, right? So from a TSI perspective, we want more partners selling the grants and discounts, the nonprofit vertical SKUs, and we want more customers in the nonprofit space buying and taking advantage of those, right? So understanding how whatever thing you are doing maps to how my team is measured in metric really gets us aligned from the get-go. So that would be another thing that I would encourage partners to think about and ask of each and every Microsoft individual or team they interact with is making sure that whatever they're asking of those teams or whatever their need is as a partner, that they're aligning it to the goals and measures of that group from Microsoft.
I have to say, Justin, I was going to ask you, one of my next questions was going to be if there was one thing you had to tell partners to be aware of. I feel like that was the mic drop moment right there of do that. Get aligned today.
For sure.
'Cause-
I think that there's so many that was a tough question to sort of frame up because, but I think for right now, what's top of mind, things to take advantage of. We're getting ready to end our fiscal year and kick off FY26, which is hard to say. Pay attention to the two partner messaging around the big bets that Microsoft is making. Attend these one-to-many kickoffs with the different teams that you work with. Seek them out. Look on LinkedIn or look on the various chat groups and blogs and communities where these things are broadcast, and pay attention to those. Those are going to announce the big bets that Microsoft is making, and really try to align to those. And I think, lastly, in addition to just understanding how teams are measured in metric, is really building and fostering AI literacy within your company, within the customers that you sell to, within your homes, within your peer group. Right. There's so much awesome free training that's available from us, that's available from our competitors. Things are moving so fast. It is going to affect and change and grow every single role and responsibility. Whatever title Rob and I have today will be different in 10 years.
Right.
So I think taking advantage of that and fostering that willingness to soak it all up, even though we don't necessarily know, where it's all going at all times, but that would be the one thing I think partners can really take advantage of. There's so much great free learning for your customers and for your organizations to take advantage of. Just be fostering that and building that literacy internally.
Without a doubt, I think, if you don't, I'm afraid I'll be a dinosaur in 10 years if I don't start keeping up on that. It'd be like, oh my goodness. So, Justin, I love that. I think that, the idea of understanding how you're measured, and then there's no question in my mind that as a partner, if you are not keeping up to date on the AI movement and how we can bring that to our customers, how we can help our customers leverage it, I think you're going to be left behind every day of the week. So I love that. One last question for you, Justin. if somebody wants to get a hold of you, is LinkedIn the best way to do that?
Yeah, that's certainly the best way to start. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Also, understand, what's the challenge, what's the need. Do you just want to, connect and network, or do you have a specific, challenge with one of your customers or somebody who didn't qualify for an offering and they thought they should? We've got a tremendous amount of resources specific to the nonprofit vertical, so definitely take advantage of those as well. Join the communities, sign up for the newsletters. Make sure you're paying attention to the plays and the trainings and the material that is nonprofit specific that Microsoft offers to our partners. But yeah, reach out through LinkedIn, help me understand what the need might be, and then I can either route it to the appropriate party or point you in the right direction for how we go from there.
Awesome. Well, Justin, I want to thank you for all your insights. I mean, there's a ton to unpack in here. So, for anybody that was watching today, thank you very much for joining us. And Justin, I appreciate the time. Take
All
care.
right. Thanks so much. Appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to working with more partners and selling.